For 100 years, the major powers of Europe managed to avoid a continent-wide war. Treaties held, borders remained mostly stable, and a long, fragile era of peace settled over the region. But this animated diagram shows how violently that century of calm shattered. The baseline of zero major conflicts spikes into an abyss, mapping out the rapid mobilization of 65 million soldiers across 37 countries. It resulted in over 15 million deaths and $186 billion in economic ruin. To understand how a global collapse of this magnitude actually begins, we have to look away from the macro statistics and focus on a single, absurdly chaotic morning, June 28, 1914, in the city of Sarajevo. The targets that day were Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the heir to the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and his wife, Sophie, seen here before their motorcade departed. Their public tour of the city was a disaster from the start. A group of assassins lined their route. One attacker threw a bomb, but it bounced right off the back of the Archduke's open-top car and exploded behind them. Despite the near miss and several wounded officers, the Archduke stubbornly insisted on continuing the drive. That insistence met a fatal logistical error. Their driver took a wrong turn, hit the brakes to reverse, and stalled the engine. The car happened to stop directly in front of a 19-year-old Serbian nationalist named Gavrilo Princip, who pulled a pistol and fired the fatal shots into the royal couple. A political murder of a royal heir in the Balkans was a regional crisis. By all logic, it should have remained a localized tragedy. Yet, within weeks, this single event managed to bleed the entire world dry. Europe was primed for an explosion due to three structural realities. Empires were aggressively expanding into Africa and Asia. Military budgets were swelling as nations stockpiled new weapons, and the continent was bound together by a hidden, trapwire web of secret mutual defense pacts. The first domino fell when Austria-Hungary blamed the nation of Serbia for the assassination. They issued an ultimatum packed with impossible demands, and within a month declared war. As this map of Europe illustrates, that declaration tripped the first wire. Russia shared deep Slavic cultural ties with Serbia and was legally bound to protect them, forcing the Russian military to mobilize its massive army in defense. Looking at the same map, the chain reaction accelerates. Germany, tied by an ironclad alliance to Austria-Hungary, was forced to respond to the Russian mobilization by declaring war on Russia. The trap tightens further here. Germany knew fighting Russia in the east meant leaving their western border completely exposed. To avoid a drawn-out, two-front war, they preemptively declared war on Russia's strongest ally, France. To quickly crush the French, the German army devised a strategy bypassing France's heavily fortified border. They decided to march hundreds of thousands of troops right through the middle of neutral Belgium. That invasion triggered a 150-year-old treaty guaranteeing Belgian neutrality, a treaty signed by Britain. With German boots on Belgian soil, the British government had no choice but to declare war on Germany. This intricate diplomatic trap was then fed into the jaws of modern industry. Soldiers marched into the firing lines of new technologies, like the heavy machine guns seen here, capable of spitting out 600 rounds a minute. The speed and scale of death outpaced any military strategy. The system of mutual defense pacts was originally engineered to maintain peace by promising mutual destruction if anyone fired a shot. Instead, it functioned as an automated mechanism that locked the entire continent into a suicide pact. Britain's entry into the fray pulled a vast, globally scattered empire straight into the trenches. A single declaration of war in London automatically drafted colonial subjects living on entirely different continents. The European powers extracted an immense toll from their colonies. This photograph captures just a fraction of the 1.5 million Indian troops who were shipped across the world to fight in foreign mud, dying alongside soldiers conscripted from Australia, Canada, and across the African continent. The killing quickly spilled into the oceans. Facing a suffocating British naval blockade, Germany resorted to a desperate naval tactic, deploying fleets of submarines or U-boats to sink supply vessels without warning. This ruthless strategy hit a breaking point when a German submarine torpedoed the British passenger liner Lusitania, shown here. Among the 1,198 dead were 128 American citizens. While the Lusitania soured relations, the final catalyst that dragged the United States into the mud was an intercepted message known as the Zimmermann telegram. In it, the German government actively attempted to provoke Mexico into launching a surprise attack on American soil. By 1917, the structure of colonial exploitation and globalized maritime trade ensured that a localized border dispute in the Balkans inevitably consumed neutral nations and millions of subjects living oceans away. After 4 years, 4 months, and 11 days of continuous slaughter, the guns finally fell silent. The strain of the conflict completely collapsed 4 of the world's most powerful dynasties: the Russian, Austro-Hungarian, Ottoman, and German empires. From the ruins of those empires, the map of the modern world was aggressively carved up and redrawn. Entirely new nations, like Yugoslavia and an independent Poland, were willed into existence by the victors. The formal resolution took place in gilded rooms, like the one captured in this photograph. Here, the winning nations drafted treaties that levied crushing financial penalties and territorial losses on the defeated, establishing a brittle New World Order. The physical scars of the conflict were permanently etched into the landscape. Massive stone monuments were erected to honor the staggering sacrifice of colonial troops who perished for kings and empires that were not their own. As seen in this memorial, built to commemorate Indian soldiers, the sheer volume of displaced casualties forced European nations to build sprawling cemeteries thousands of miles from the victims' homes. Yet, the true legacy of the war might be best understood through a single, quiet moment in a French trench. A British soldier named Henry Tandy had his rifle raised, aiming directly at a wounded, retreating German soldier. Instead of pulling the trigger, Tandy made a fateful decision. He lowered his weapon, nodded to the exhausted enemy, and allowed him to walk away. We know this story because the German soldier who survived that day was a young corporal named Adolf Hitler. The chain reaction that began in Sarajevo did not truly end in 1918. The punishing treaties that concluded the fighting, combined with a single bullet that was never fired, simply reset the dominoes for a